All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's virtual industry briefing to help you understand the over $2.9 billion state and local IT market opportunity in the state of Texas. I'm Dustin Haisler. I'm Chief Innovation Officer for eRepublic, the parent company of Government Technology Magazine, and I'm excited to serve as one of your hosts for today's rapid fire 30-minute discussion, along with Joe Morris, our own Deputy Chief Innovation Officer for eRepublic. So, Joe, thanks for hopping on. It's going to be a fun ride. We got a lot of ground to cover as we dive into this incredible opportunity in the state of Texas. So just to kind of give you a lay of what we're going to cover, we're going to do a rapid fire Texas government IT landscape overview. We'll talk about the state, we'll talk about the local, and most importantly, we'll talk about how you can act on this opportunity today. We'll also have plenty of time for our live questions. So make sure if you've got questions, we've got answers. We'll bring a special guest in as we get into our Industry Insider product. Now, today, we're here to talk about this incredible opportunity for companies that are looking to work with state and local government agencies in Texas. Now, this is such a pivotal moment in time for Texas government technology that we have launched a new media property just for Texas called Industry Insider Texas. You're going to hear that referenced a few times during today's presentation. This is the only media platform that provides market critical news, opportunities, and market analysis, along with events for government IT in Texas. It's really the easy button for companies that are looking at working in the Texas market that need to stay up on the latest and have access to key buyers and their unique needs. It also provides an outlet for government employees in Texas to keep up with what their peers are doing. And it really builds on our amazing relationship with the state of Texas and localities over the last 3 decades. In fact, we just came off of our 33rd annual Digital Government Summit in Austin earlier this month. But today we're going to unpack the why and share some of the key things that you need to know about state and local government IT in Texas. Now, to help kick off our rapid market interview, Joe, I'll let you dive into the IT landscape in Texas.
All right, let's go. So when you look at what's happening in Texas, and I think it's kind of indicative of what's happening in the rest of the national economy, we've got a lot of stability out there in the state and even in the local market. While the market may have not been growing at the same rate we saw in 2021, we're seeing a lot of stability and a lot of ability to predict kind of stability going forward into 2023 and even into 2024. When you look specifically at why that's happening, it's because you've got strong state and local budgets, improved tax revenue, and then you've got all the money that's coming in through the various forms of federal aid, whether that's been CARES, whether that's ARPA, and now into the infrastructure bill. You look at what that means to Texas. I mean, you're talking about nearly $40 billion through ARPA alone. Keep in mind, those funds have a long tail, so they're going to be with us for a while to 2025, 2027. And then now we're looking at what does the infrastructure law mean to Texas as well. We know that that's just starting to get rolling. We're starting to see those notice of funding announcements start to creep in here, but those funds really aren't going to start having an impact until next year and then beyond that. And then as you start to thumb through the budget, our team's already produced a multi-page budget document on the state of Texas's budget. And there's a lot there to like in terms of IT modernization money. You can see that the big fund there in terms of $900 million funded in terms of technology modernization. You're going to hear a lot in this presentation in terms of what we see and what we forecast for technology. But I think there's a reason why we're here in Texas, and that's because the outlook is positive. We're talking about addressing tech debt. We're talking about a desire here in the state and across the state to drive a much more modern government, a much more digital government. Texas is no different than any other state. Everyone is focused on the future of work in the workforce. And what does that mean to IT modernization? And that's driving a whole host of modernization opportunities around workflow, digital and document management, RPA, automation, you name it. And we're in the very early stages of juggling hybrid and remote work across the state here as well. And then we look at the big picture issues that haven't changed: compliance and security. Texas is leading on many of these efforts and has taken a strong role in terms of IT security, major leadership coming out of the state, and that is going to continue to see cybersecurity remain, I think, at the top or near the top of the priority lists as we look forward.
Yeah, so it's a great kind of high level overview. Now we're going to double click on that and talk about as it relates to state and local government. I'm going to start with states first, and Joe will dive into locals here in a second. So kind of giving you the big picture executive summary. Texas is a massive opportunity here, total budget over $126 billion, which puts the IT budget around $2.9 billion. Now it's got a biennial budget cycle, which we'll talk about, and a 2-year fiscal cycle that we will talk about as well. Now, Texas is also decentralized, so let's dive into kind of what that means. Now, looking at kind of the overall procurement landscape for technology, one of the things that we do through our GovTech Navigator product is we track IT procurements and we look at what is happening across the state. Looking at Texas, we know managed services are off the charts across state and localities, but specifically states, departments are looking at ways to kind of deal with some of the shortfalls in workforce and bring in managed services as a part of it. But then you get the database data management side. So still a lot of legacy tech needs that are still there as we look at the push to modernization and kind of getting into some of those subcategories, software as a service, software maintenance, cloud computing. Now, as I said, massive budget opportunity, one of the largest across the country, almost $3 billion just in the state alone that's dedicated to information technology. Now, Texas is also one of the few states that is decentralized, meaning that rather than having a centralized CIO that has enterprise authority over IT decisions across all state departments, Texas's structure is a little bit different, where some of the individual departments have their own decision-making authority as it relates to information technology within some of the guidelines that are set by the state. So an important nuance to understand, because you're seeing, different landscapes, different approaches, but for such a massive opportunity, it also requires a different market approach as you think about how to scale. The CIO, the state CIO, is not just the only decision maker you need to target. You now need to look at a network of people that are under that. Now, who is that network? Well, the state employs over 144,000 people across over 135 state agencies. In fact, this number pushes, north of 150 when you look at some of the other state functions that fall into this IT number. So again, a lot of different departments that have great technology needs and that need to look at this from an enterprise standpoint, but there's a lot of new Cs that are involved in these. So, not just the CFOs, but now CIOs at the individual state agencies that have to be navigated. Now, what are the largest agencies as you look at the opportunity by budget? Of course, Health and Human Services top of mind, Department of Transportation, tons of federal funding flowing into that. You look at the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, transportation was the poster child that was targeted for that. So expect DOTs to spend a lot of money on modernization, not just the physical infrastructure in the ground. Department of Criminal Justice, General Land Office, and Department of Family and Protective Services. So kind of social services, transit, and infrastructure, some of the core aspects from a budgetary standpoint, but still plenty of opportunities with these other departments. Now, as I mentioned, Texas has a biennial legislative process as well as budget process, meaning every 2 years the state goes into session. We're about to go into session as we get into 2023, which means that this is the perfect time to start shaping some of those conversations in the market so that as this budgetary process rolls through, it's top of mind and you're addressing some of the needs that are being discussed right now in the formational stages. Now, the state of Texas fiscal year ends September 30th, and most cities in Texas, as Joe will talk local, they follow an October 1 fiscal start, also mirroring the September 30th end date. So Texas is unique in a variety of different ways, not just from the decentralized nature, but also the budgetary process and the nuances that you need to know as it relates to that. So, looking ahead at some of the new issues that we need to be aware of. One, election cycles. We know elections are disruptive. Texas is one of 36 states that's going through state gubernatorial election processes that are happening right now. Now, we don't anticipate the governor to roll over or party to change in Texas. However, there will be other nuances associated with elections that are happening, and you'll start to see some new positions and new Cs that emerge in some of the department levels as well. So elections are a period of lots of change, lots of challenges to the existing norms. You'll see a lot of this also on the local side to be aware of as we go forward. Now, the state IT organization is known as the Department of Information Resources. They serve a variety of different functions, from being a procurement vehicle and helping with the purchasing support for state agencies and helping operate a state contract that even locals and community colleges can procure off of. They also set the IT statewide strategy, as well as deal with some of the cybersecurity risk and a variety of other things that are there. Amazing organization with over 200 professionals that are working on modernizing government IT and making government more accessible and secure. Now, one of the things that we've done is we've analyzed what are the key priorities and goals across state and local government in Texas. And fortunately for all of us, the state has an IT strategic plan. So I'm going to go through the high-level goals that the state has and what they mean. Let's start first with secure IT service delivery. Security is top of mind across the board. So the state is really looking at prioritizing how do they take a risk-based approach to cybersecurity? How do they build resiliency into the processes that are there? How do they focus on regional investments with cybersecurity so that they don't go at it alone, but they look at how do we build a managed service wrapper around this? And how do we do this in a scalable way where we can look at cost-effective ways that make this accessible to everyone? The second goal is around advanced data management. Now, we know data is front and center. It was a key part of pandemic response. But now the state is looking at how do we take that to the next level? How do we strengthen data governance and implement best practices? How do we focus on data security? And maybe, as we look at what happened with GDPR and the impact on states across the US, what does that mean for Texas? What happens if the federal government takes up new privacy legislation? How do we enhance security and privacy requirements as a part of it? We also know that data is a basis of making better decisions. And so DIR in the state of Texas is looking for tools that can help make better decisions and operationalize that data. And then, the last one here is key, data sharing culture. You're going to start to see the word culture appear a lot more in procurements because agencies are struggling with this hybrid nature of work that Joe talked about. And they want ways to balance the new cultural norms that are there. And they need help from the private sector communities to deal with that. The next section, strategic digital transformation. Digital transformation has been talked about for a long time, but now the state is moving on that. And as Joe said, $900 million allocated for IT modernization. So how does that actually play into the strategy for the state? Well, it starts first with articulating that and kind of unpacking that. So they need help on developing kind of the vision and guidance on how to do that. Looking at, right now they're going through agency reviews where there's a reporting requirement for agencies to kind of submit their plans to DIR to help them understand where they're at, but also where those gaps are. And they're looking at helping meet some of the new needs from Texans, from the constituents that they serve, but leaning into mobile first and focusing on government experience, often a couple layers abstracted from state government, but now front and center for states across the country. And Texas is leading the way as it relates to that. And then we've got a proactive approach to emerging technologies. We know emerging technologies are key, so they're prioritizing, platforms and projects that support emerging technology and focus on the plumbing, the security, the single sign-on. You'll see a lot of identity and access management in this. They're looking at how do we take a flexible and adaptive approach to the way that we procure and pilot these? How do we identify opportunities to improve the day-to-day functions of how we deliver services, leveraging these new technologies? And then resiliency, as we think about the workforce and the changes and drastic shifts that are happening with the workforce, how do we develop a resilient workforce that can leverage these technologies and augment the way that they're doing work? So much that the state is focusing on right now as a part of this. Now, I had to also bring this into the conversation because in addition to all of these priorities, the state has really been focusing on finding ways to make it easier for new companies that are entering the market to do business with the state in a very consolidated way. Now, we're all familiar with FedRAMP and StateRAMP is emerging. Texas also has been directed by the legislature in the last session to create TexRAMP. And so basically any state agency has to contract off of TexRAMP as of January 1st of this year. So this is already in effect. There's timelines that are there as opposed to existing solutions and how they flow. But the key here is if you're already on StateRAMP or FedRAMP, the DIR is going to go ahead and leverage that as certification for TexRAMP. But if you're not, this is an important area. If you're looking at breaking into state government in Texas, you're going to have to start to focus on making sure that you go through the TexRAMP process. There's no cost. And there's a great kind of very simple process for you to follow as a part of that. We'll be continuing to break that down with our Industry Insider product, but wanted to make you aware of that. And lastly, Texas has so much great information that's been put out. I leveraged priorities from the IT strategic plan that have been put out for 2022 to 2026. But also as of yesterday, the comptroller also rolled out their own Texas broadband plan. So these strategies, these plans, these guidances, they're being put out on a regular basis. The state is providing perspective and commentary on that. So you definitely want to take advantage of that. If you're a Navigator member or Industry Insider member, we're bringing those to you on a regular basis, but don't lose sight of these strategic plans because they're great knowledge opportunities. So Joe, break down local government for us.
All right. If state government wasn't big enough, local government spends about $2 billion on IT in Texas alone. You can see here, employs over 300,000 people, 254 counties, over 1,200 cities. That doesn't even account for the $2 billion of K through 12 and higher ed IT spend that we see here too. So when you look at it all in, we're talking about a massive spender of IT across state, local government, and education in Texas. And that brings us to kind of our coverage model for Industry Insider. We're not just focusing on the state, that is our bread and butter, but you're going to see great coverage across our cities, our counties, our special districts, and the major educational institutions. Now, when you look at Industry Insider, you will start to see we've got coverage for the big cities and the small cities. Here are your biggest cities ranked by budget: Austin, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Fort Worth. We've got the full listing all the way down to the bottom. But then you get to the counties as well. And many of you on the line know this. Many counties in Texas are larger than some states. So when you look at the Harris counties of the world, you've got a tremendous IT sophistication, major IT investment, and that's what we're going to be spending the time unpacking, is identifying these opportunities at the local levels that can get you in front of these opportunities, let you know the people that are making these decisions, the personas behind them, and kind of getting you inside some of these decisions. And then that also means spending time on special districts. And Dustin and I were big fans of the special district market, but getting into these major agencies, the airports, the ports, the hospitals, the transit authorities that are shifting their own budget and their own IT spend. You look at the infrastructure money that's coming, the $1.2 trillion that's coming down, that's going to be largely going to state and local market. The special districts market is going to be very busy as custodians of those dollars, and it's going to be generating a tremendous amount of monetization as we look forward. Now, when I kicked this off in terms of IT priorities, we thought we'd aggregate the local government priorities for you just to give you a sense. And there's a tremendous amount of commonality now between the state CIO priorities in Texas and the local government CIO priorities in Texas as well. This is from our digital counties and cities surveys. And you can see, regardless of level of government, we've got a strong focus on cybersecurity, a focus on the government experience and that citizen engagement, but then disaster recovery. When we talked about compliance at the beginning, look at all of those priorities. They're resonating in terms of what the CIOs are telling us they're going to be focused on. That broadband plan, you can see the focus on broadband and connectivity. So look for a lot of partnership opportunities here between state and local government. And then you look at cloud, many of the other priorities, cracking the top 5 list here.
All right. So one of the other things that we have assembled as a part of this is the top 5 strategies to help accelerate your sales and marketing initiatives in Texas. And we are tight for time. So what we're going to do is actually send that to your inbox. So that way you have a chance to review our best practices, reverse engineering some of those campaigns. But I want to now shift gears and talk about how to act on this opportunity. And that's really why we have focused on this platform and assembling a team that is really designed to cover the nuances of what's happening in the state. And we're going to talk about some of those trends. We're going to talk about kind of what we're seeing, what we're doing, and how we're going to approach that and how you can take advantage of it. So I want to invite to our virtual stage our executive editor of our Industry Insider Texas and California products, Dennis Noone. Dennis, thanks so much for joining us and carving some time out.
Hi, Dustin and Joe. Thanks for having me on. I'm as excited as you are about the opportunities ahead of us here in Texas. We rolled out Industry Insider Texas a few weeks back. We've already been building up some momentum on our coverage plans. We're continuing to refine our areas of focus. But just to touch on a couple of the points that you've made, we will be focusing on the exact drivers and influences that are driving the Texas market. Modernization, broadband, cybersecurity, managed services obviously presents tremendous opportunities for the vendor community. One example of the cybersecurity would be the Regional Security Center Operations Center at Angelo State University. We had coverage on that. As soon as we rolled out, the timing was nice on that. We were able to work in some coverage on that. We've got a team, a Dallas-based writer, Ray DeShong, and an Austin-based editor, Darren Nielsen, who are heading up our Texas reporting and editing team. They've got a full plate in front of them in terms of coverage. Their mandate is to cover the people, the deals, the influences, and behind the scenes of what's going on in Texas. As I said, the opportunities are tremendous there. We feel that we provide the coverage of when there's a new hire, when there are promotions, when there's a sales team realignment, when there are opportunities, pre-RFP opportunities. We help the community see around the corners of what's coming. We've got relationships with the public and private sectors. And our goal, as we see it, is to serve as sort of the connective tissue and to provide a platform where those two elements can come together. We provide the job critical information to the public and private sectors of who each other are and what they're looking for and how we can help them in their missions.
Well, that's great. And I appreciate you covering the editorial focus. When you look at the core audience of Industry Insider Texas, can I shed a little bit of light in terms of who that is and who that will be as that grows?
It's really a two-part audience. The one part is the public sector. We want to make available and to inform them about what's going on in the private sector, what the developments are, what the emerging technologies are. But it's equally important that the private sector knows who the public sector are. So we've got a dual audience there. We cover them both in many of the same ways. The idea doing question and answer interviews, video interviews at some of our events, which opens up all kinds of opportunities for us. And not only in terms of covering stories, but We've got events planned, seminars, webinars, briefings, Q&As, all sorts of different ways that people can touch the community and can serve as as we said, to serve as connective tissue.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. So, you covered the programming that we've got. I know we've had a number of interviews as well. So, we just came off of an amazing event in Austin, as I mentioned, our 33rd annual Digital Government Summit that took place earlier this month. What are some of the things that you saw there that kind of stood out to you and the team?
Well, some of the takeaways, I think modernization is a big one. I think cybersecurity element, obviously, for everybody, state, local, city, special districts, and education particularly are touched by that. Those are in areas of a lot of focus, a lot of attention. And I think generally, overall, that event, like many of our events, is designed to provide that networking, those linkages between, so that the communications go both ways. I know the public sector relies on the private sector, as I said, for a lot, and the private sector wants to know what the public sector wants. So we provide that glue, if you will.
I think one of the great things is acting as that connective tissue, right? The desire to create a community, an industry community that's informed by what's happening in the public sector. In addition to the editorial team that you mentioned, you're also flanked by a bunch of market experts, right? Those former Texas practitioners, and then obviously the eRepublik powerhouse that's out there doing the events that you just mentioned. So maybe you could talk a little bit about just the process. I know the editorial team was at the event, so what were they doing at the Digital Government Summit, and how are we seeing that translate back into Industry Insider?
Well, one of the goals for us to go is not only to cover the breakout sessions and to capture the headlines and the high points, but also to meet the people, to get in and to network and to get out and talk with the folks in the meetings and at the seminars. We find that one of the best ways to build our community. Our sources are our readers. Unlike many traditional publications, a newspaper or a magazine where it's top-down communication, this is much more of a give and take. We get a lot of our ideas for coverage and a lot of the approaches we take from the people we're covering in the public and private sector. So as you mentioned earlier, when a strategic plan comes out for IT or when a proposed budget comes out, we're all over that because our goal is to help the vendors and the public sector navigate what lays ahead, to help them see around the corners.
So where can our audience go to dive into all of this greatness that we've been talking about today?
It's very easy. We ask you to go online to insider.govtech, Govtech, insider.govtech.com/Texas. We've got our own portal set up there. It's extremely easy to navigate. It's a comprehensive portal with tons of tools. I would encourage anybody to explore the drop downs and to get in and poke around. There's a lot of great information in there, some of which we're just now beginning to unfold. So more to come.
All right. Well, Dennis, thanks so much. Now we do have some time for our questions and answers and your live questions. So we're going to transition into that. But before we do, we've got an incredible opportunity also that we're making available just for people today. If you're interested in getting kind of an early bird look at our membership into Industry Academy Texas, we'll give you the opportunity to let us know, and we'll reach out with some information that we're able to make available just to those that are on the webinar today. While you're doing that, I also wanted to correct something that I said earlier. So thanks to Jason. In my fire hose of a presentation, I misstated our fiscal year start in Texas. It starts September 1 and ends August 31st. So Jason, thanks for the catch on that. And we appreciate that. And with that, let's dive into some of the questions that we have from the audience. First one here is, can you share more about the data tools that you're providing for the market? So Joe, this is one that we've gotten a lot, as we kind of think about how we segment and kind of curate the market. So what do you think if we just show it?
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, we can, give everyone a little bit of a peek and fire it up and show you what's behind the curtain. So, in putting the platform together, it's not just the wonderful editorial coverage that you're going to get from those individuals that are walking the hallways and getting you that insight, but we also wanted to leverage kind of all of our tremendous research capacity. So we built a variety of tools here. We've got opportunity trackers that are going to get you in front of the deals. We are breaking down all that IT spending So what you can see here is going back from early 2020 to today, we've tracked nearly $9 billion of IT spend across 12,000 vendors, across 175 agencies. So, we're getting close to 300 purchase orders tracked. So if you want to understand which vendors are winning, how much, when, peaks and valleys of the purchasing season, we've got you covered there in a wonderful interactive tool. You've got IT org charts to understand across the major locations, all of the org charts and decision-making processes that exist. So really helping you better understand that landscape. I mentioned the opportunity tracker. So for the entities across Texas, if you want to know what they're issuing from a technology procurement, we've got full breakouts of all of the published RFPs, RFIs, pre-RFPs, developing opportunities to get you in front of all of those procurements. Then you keep going. Our editorial team is going to be, out there in front of the CIO community, doing one-on-one interviews, giving you that insight so you can get a deeper understanding of the major decision makers. Statewide contracts for hardware, IT services, network telecom, you name it, across the major IT categories. So you've got all renewals, vendor contact information is available there to you. And then to the earlier question about budgets, we've got all the breakouts. You can see all of the agencies and departments breakouts by year and their corresponding IT spend. And then contact information. So this is verified contact information. At least twice a year, our team is going through, updating the contacts, names, titles, phone numbers, emails, mailing addresses for the major IT decision makers across the state.
All right.
That's just a sample of some of the data tools, Dustin.
Great on the fly demo there. All right, so Dennis, this one's for you. How often are the Industry Insider Texas email newsletter? So I know you're curating and you and the team are curating that. What's the cadence on that?
Well, we're rolling out now 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You get an email in your inbox first thing in the morning. Soon, I'm not going to put a date to it just yet, but we're building momentum toward a 5-day-a-week newsletter. That will be the ultimate expression of Industry Insider Texas. 5 days a week on the website. We, on occasion, when events warrant, we will send out special bulletins, email breaking news alerts in the afternoons. We will be driven by the news cycle, and but ultimately 5 days a week, but for now 3.
Fantastic. So Joe, I hear there's something about a free trial that's also happening right now. So tell us a little bit about that. I've had a couple of questions in the chat on that too.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't already taken advantage of it or you're not in there, we've got a free trial all for the rest of the month of June. So you got a little over 2 weeks to get in there, kick the tires. Take a look at the newsletter, read the editorial content, take advantage of those tools. We'd be happy to have you. So if you get a moment, join us at Industry Insider Texas.
Absolutely. So there's so much happening right now in the state of Texas, and it was so great to be in the trenches with our DGS just earlier this month to hear how states were prioritizing all of this great technology, but also how the local governments are starting to look at this, and everyone in the state of Texas is moving on tech. And so as we've said, this is a once in a generation opportunity to kind of meet these needs, to be a partner to government and to help them navigate some of the uncertainties of today and to prepare for what comes next. There's a huge push and focus on modernization, cybersecurity, as Joe talked about, workforce challenges, really looking at the bigger picture of how do we prepare for whatever comes next. Great new sets of leaders, great new funding that's available. So exciting to see all of this. But I do want to be respectful of our time commitment, and it's hard to believe 29 minutes later, here we are, and it's time to wrap up. So in closing, thanks to Joe, thanks to Dennis for carving some time out to break down this incredible market opportunity. And thanks to our audience for joining us. We are very passionate about the state of Texas. I live in Austin. I'm so passionate about it. And we hope that you'll join us along the this great journey as we kind of look at helping connect industry and government in the state. And a big thank you to Industry Insider's team for all the great coverage that they've done. We'll be in touch with our best practices guide, as I mentioned earlier in our presentation. We'll also make sure everyone has a copy of our slide deck as well, so that you can use that. And we look forward to seeing you again at another Industry Insider Texas event. We hope you have a great summer, and hope to see you again soon.